Hello everyone, welcome to the Cuny Suny Uplift Us campaign event. We will be starting in 2 minutes, just to give a folks time to trick in. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us as we discuss the key issues impacting Cuny and Suny college students. Ability to persist through the college, the Cuny Suny Uplift of campaign is centered around the belief that campus service and resources have the ability to uplift disadvantaged students and ensure that they have the chance to succeed in college and beyond. Before we get into the presentation, we'll first briefly introduce everyone on the team.
Hi everyone, my name is Hafsa. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a senior at Hunter College majoring in psychology, and I'm working on the Cuny Suny Uplift Us campaign because I think every student should have the resources and services they need to persist through college.
Hello everyone, my name is Alyssa. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm a senior at the State University of New York, College at Oneonta, where I'm majoring in Spanish. And I'm driven to work on advocating for basic needs for students due to my own personal experiences, as well as the challenges that I have seen my student peers navigate on their own throughout higher education.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lea Guzman. Thank you so much for being here. I'm a junior at John Jay College majoring in law and society, and I'm extremely passionate about this campaign because I believe that all students should have access to their basic needs.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming today. My name is Soleil Green. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm currently a junior at Suny Purchase, where I major in political science. This campaign is important to me as I and many other friends have experienced issues in having our basic needs met.
Hey, thank you guys for popping out to our virtual event. My name is Magby Sila, pronouns are she, her, hers, and I go to the City College of New York, double majoring in political science and Black studies. I call myself a scholar activist where I give voice to issues students face. With our Cuny and Suny Uplift Us campaign, I'm able to do exactly that and mobilize students to join the initiative.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jalisa Fernandez, and I'm a sophomore study in liberal art and science at Gatman Community College. I'm doing this campaign because I believe that every Cuny and Suny student should have access for the basic need and mental health services.
Okay, so this will be our agenda for tonight's event. We'll first begin by giving a brief overview of the key issues and policies we're fighting for in our Cuny Suny Uplift Us campaign. And then we'll have a discussion with 2 student panelists. Finally, we'll discuss how you can get involved and fight for change with our Cuny Suny Uplift Us call to action. Our Cuny Suny Uplift Us campaign highlights 3 key issue areas that need to be addressed urgently. We focused on food insecurity, housing insecurity and homelessness, and access to mental health care. This campaign is centered around the belief that campus services and resources have the ability to uplift disadvantaged students and ensure that they have a chance to succeed in college and beyond. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Hafsa. So what does it mean to be food insecure, housing insecure, or have mental health difficulties as a college student? Broadly speaking, food insecurity is when an individual lacks secure access to sufficient, affordable, and nutritious food. Housing insecurity is when an individual is having trouble paying rent or if they are living in unstable or unsafe conditions. Mental health difficulties are a range of conditions such as anxiety and depression that prevent an individual from functioning as they normally would in their day-to-day activities. Next slide, please. Food insecurity is prevalent among Cuny and Suny students. According to the 2019 Suny Food Insecurity Task Force, 54% of community college students and 40% of students from state-operated campuses said that they were hungry but couldn't afford to buy food. Although Suny campuses offer a wide range of services to help alleviate these issues, the same study reports that 66% of students from state-operated campuses and 61% of students from community colleges are unaware as to where they can receive assistance. Coupled with the fact that all of the reports state that food insecurity can negatively impact a student's academic success, this highlights the impact of how Suny schools fail in tackling this problem. The graph here is from the 2019 Real College Survey of Food Insecurity in Suny schools. Food insecurity is higher in 2-year colleges, with 17% reporting low and 25% reporting very low food security compared to the 4-year colleges statistics of 14 and 16% respectively. Next slide, please. In this slide, we'll focus on the statistics from Cuny schools. In the 30 days prior to the Cuny Real College 2018 survey, out of 22,000 students, almost half, 48%, reported food insecurity, with 20% reported at the low and 28% reported at the very lowest level of food security. In the same survey, 11% reported not eating for at least a full day due to lack of money for food. In the 2018 Healthy Cuny survey, 15% of students reported they were often or sometimes hungry in the last year, an estimated 34,000 students. What is most important to note here, however, is the disparity of who is experiencing food insecurity. The Real College 2018 Cuny survey found that minority students reported higher levels of food insecurity, with LGBTQ, Black, and Latinx students reporting higher numbers than their peers. The graph on this slide shows the breakdown in the 2018 Healthy Cuny survey, with Black and Latinx being higher as well, but also showing that women, students in community colleges, and students whose income was less than $30,000 also experienced higher levels. This makes it clear that Cuny and Suny students are suffering from a lack of access to food, and campuses should take the proper steps to help some of their most at-risk students. Next slide, please.
Thank you so much for that, Soleil. Now we'll be talking about housing insecurity. This issue is extremely detrimental to students and prevalent in Cuny and Suny campuses. In a 2018 survey done by the Hope Center, 55% of Cuny student survey respondents experienced housing insecurity in the previous year. The same survey found that 44 students attending a 2-year Suny institution were housing insecure, and 30% of students at our 4-year institutions were experiencing housing insecurity. It is also important to note that there are many disparities among which students are more at risk for food and housing insecurity. In a 2018 Hope Center study states that racial and ethnic disparities are evident. According to the same study, part-time students are more at risk for housing insecurity than their full-time counterparts, and non-binary and transgender students are more at risk for both housing and food insecurity compared to their cisgender students. This comes as no surprise, as we found statistics in the Hope Center survey, which show that transgender students made up 34% of the homeless student population. So for the next 2 minutes, we're going to be watching an insightful video created by Young Invincibles, which showcases the urgency of the housing crisis that some students are facing right now.
My name is Robert, and I'm 23 years old. I currently attend BMCC. The first year I failed because I was jumping around from shelter to shelter while I was doing my first year of college.
My name is Karina, and I'm 30. I recently graduated in May from Hunter College. I thought that my college experience would be something, like what I used to see on TV. That was never my experience. It would be days where I would go to class hungry, starving. I went to sleep on the trains.
My name is Sierra. I'm 21 years old. I started attending City Tech. If I didn't get what I needed from the 2 jobs, I would just wait until I was able to get it myself. And I was hospitalized for starvation at one point. So, yeah.
My name is Lyric, and I'm 22. Right now I go to CCNY, or City College. I know a lot of people still think that Cuny is free. I can barely pay to come to college. If I'm not at class, I'm at one job. And if I'm not at one job, I'm at another job.
I would say the biggest challenge just was keeping my grades up. I was more focused on probably where I'm gonna be staying at for the next couple of months.
I didn't know about the support programs that the school had, or if they even had any at the time. Only this semester I found out about the food voucher program that they do, and that has been a big help to me.
I did not know any programs because nobody told me anything. So I was just basically struggling there with no information whatsoever.
College is already hard enough, but then to deal with that stress, and then the stress of being homeless, not knowing where your next meal is gonna come, and then finding time to, do your homework, it's incredibly challenging.
We need college. It's if you don't go to college, you're not gonna get a good job. The minimum is an associate's degree. And if I have to work all the time, how am I gonna get that degree?
So Cuny has a new chancellor. I wish that he would acknowledge the problem.
With financial aid, college is expensive.
I know exactly what's at stake because this is my way out of my situation. If not, then I just stay stuck.
Thank you all so much for watching the video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. As we can see from this video, housing insecurity, homelessness, can be extremely detrimental to students' well-being and can even delay their graduation. Therefore, this is a really, really urgent issue. Oops. Okay. So now we're going to move on to our final key issue, which is going to be mental health. Thousands of Cuny students experience a wider range of mental difficulties, ranging from symptoms of depression to anxiety and psychological distress. According to a study done by Healthy Cuny, 20% of Cuny students suffer from anxiety and 18% suffer from depression. Additionally, 86% of those students who suffer from psychological distress have not visited their campus mental health centers in the last year. Studies on college students who have depression show that they have lower GPAs and lower levels of academic persistence and achievement compared to their peers who are not depressed. These challenges have only been exacerbated since the onset of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Active Mind Student Mental Health Survey found that out of 2,000 students, almost 75% reported their mental health has worsened since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are a lot of reasons as to why there is a lack of mental health support in our campuses. A lot of students simply are not even aware that there are services available. And some students do seek help, but they have to wait months to even have an intake appointment. Cuny invested $5 million towards mental health in the fall of 2020, but this is not enough. Sadly, students are still struggling to have their basic needs met. I also want to take a moment to note that there were many significant studies that were found on mental health for SUNY students. While we know that SUNY has invested $24 million into its mental health resources. We just want to point out that Suny's data collection and reporting on this topic can use so much more work, as we're unable to find substantial findings on Suny's mental health resources. Suny plans on using their new funding of $24 million on mental health, expanding the Suny crisis text line, peer-to-peer hotlines, and campus student counseling networks. However, I do want to point out that $24 million is not enough because there are 64 Suny campuses. Now that we understand our key issues and how they affect the lives of many students across New York State, it is important to understand that these issues intersect, making the lives of many students even more difficult. In order for students to truly succeed, they must have all their 3 basic needs met. I will pass it over to Alyssa to share more about our demands and how we can take action to properly address these issues.
Thank you, Lea. While we recognize that Suny and Cuny have made efforts to invest in their students more recently with the investments like the $24 million that was just listed, it is simply not enough to ensure the success of our students. We are launching our Cuny Suny Uplift Us campaign to highlight 3 major issues that college students are facing: food insecurity, housing insecurity, and insufficient mental health resources and support. We are also highlighting the 3 policy demands that can pave the way for students to have their basic needs met at Cuny and Suny campuses so students can truly succeed. First, we want to express our support for Senate Bill S-844, sponsored by Senator Andrew Gennardez. This Senate bill would require a ratio of 1 clinical non-student mental health staff member per 1,000 students on all Suny and Cuny campuses, and for state colleges and universities to update such ratio every 5 years. The current counselor to student ratio at Cuny is 1 counselor for 2,400 students. Therefore, more funding is needed to hire more counselors in order to bring this ratio down to 1 counselor per 1,000 students. Second, we also demand that Cuny and Suny campuses develop a tool to measure essential needs impact for students by collecting and reporting data on the effectiveness of campus resources while protecting student confidentiality. As highlighted by the previous slide on mental health, data collection has lots of room for improvement, especially in regards to Suny schools. Suny schools could improve their data collection on food insecurity, mental health, housing, and how these conditions can intersect. Requiring data collection and reports on the students' access to resources would ensure that these schools are actively tracking and monitoring whether the essential needs are being met. Confidentially administered surveys could be sent in order to gain direct feedback on usage from the students themselves who have utilized these services. Additionally, we could also use qualitative research methods, such as interviews, surveys, and personal testimonies to determine whether students' basic needs are being met, as well as obtain their feedback on the effectiveness of the services that are being administered. By collecting students' demographic information, such as race, ethnicity, age, gender, socioeconomic status, GPA, etc., we will be able to see which groups of students utilize those services and who will be most adversely impacted if these services are cut. Finally, we demand that Cuny and Suny campuses invest $10 million in transforming food pantries into resource hubs in order to connect at-risk students to comprehensive help on campus. Resource hubs are very important for students because they will help them have access to a wide range of resources that they may have otherwise been unaware of. This resource hub idea is based on the Single Stop initiative, which is only available on Cuny community college campuses. These resource hubs would be equipped with trained on-site social workers who can work with students to help them apply for any extra funding, programs, and other resources that students may need during their time at college. These resource hubs would also operate at the campus's food pantry, making them even easier for at-risk students to access food and resources that they vitally need. Food pantries are typically the initial point of contact with university resources for food insecure students. So, by streamlining and consolidating the available campus resources into one location, students can gain access to everything they may need. In addition to being sources of food, they can be used as hubs for screening and enrolling eligible students in SNAP and other public benefits, publicizing affordable meals on campus, and engaging students in food justice organizing. Food pantries at Cuny pre-pandemic were specific only to students attending that campus. After the pandemic hit and student demand increased, Cuny schools opened food pantries to all students, regardless of the campus they attended. While this was a good first step, of course, more needs to be done to better champion the basic needs of our struggling students. This shows that there is opportunity for change if we demand it. Cuny has changed before and can change again based on student need if we advocate and mobilize accordingly. Single stop has a positive impact on connecting students to their basic needs. So we demand that all resource hubs on Suny and Cuny campuses structure their resource hubs similar to single stop. According to the Cuny website, from 2009 to 2017, Single Stop and its partners have connected 107,569 families and individuals with $274,113,613 in benefits, tax refunds, and supportive services Cuny-wide. Single Stop offers the following services confidentially and free of charge: benefit screening for Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, temporary assistance for needy families, and women, infants, and children, food pantries, financial counseling, legal counseling, tax assistance, and healthcare enrollment. The resource hub that we recommend would have similar features in order to connect students to campus resources. By transforming pre-existing food pantries into resource hubs, this is a cost-effective way for Cuny and Suny campuses to connect students to resources both on and off campus that they may have otherwise been unaware of. These resource hubs should each offer the following services: benefit screening, healthcare enrollment, and campus mental health care services. By having a network of resource hubs based on this model, our goal is to connect students all across Cuny and Suny campuses with relevant resources and boost access to these resources. Now I'll pass it on to Magby, who will be co-moderating our student panel.
Thank you, Alyssa. All right, everyone, we will begin the student panel now. We're excited to invite two student speakers who will talk to us about their experiences about meeting their basic needs as Cuny and Suny students. We invite all of you to ask questions that you have for the panelists in the chat so we can ask them in our Q&A if we have time towards the end of the event. So I'll begin with introducing both of our panelists. Our first panelist is Alison Fisher, whose degree journey spans 10 years at Cuny Hunter College, where she pursues a BA in political science and a certificate in human rights. As an Eleanor Roosevelt J. Few Scholar, Alison supports the shareholder advocacy initiatives for eliminating human trafficking and labor abuses in global supply chains. Alison presented Funding Aid Free Academy, Slavery Shadows Over New York First Municipal College, a research paper into the municipal budget of Cuny's predecessor, the Freed Academy, at Cooper's Union's 2001 Slavery and Abolition Forum. Our second panelist is Jalisa Fernandez, who was raised in New York City. Jalisa is a passionate first-generation college student studying human development and environmental science with a concentration in public policy. She is passionate about equity for all students, regardless of socioeconomic status in many areas, especially within the food system. She is currently conducting independent research to find the connections between food insecurity and the systems that perpetrates it, with the intent to have this academic paper published. While interning at the food pantry at Binghamton University, she has witnessed the issue of food insecurity on a small scale and hopes to find solutions on a global scale. By being involved and giving back is one of her greatest pleasures, which is why she served as a trio mentor through student support services to help low-income first-generation students learn the necessary skills to be successful both academically and personally throughout their college careers. All right, so the first question for our panelists is, what are your experiences with food/housing insecurity and mental health? Have you personally been affected by either issue, and if so, in what way? And to follow that, has it affected your abilities as a student? Examples are like maintaining grades, forming healthy relationships, etc. And take your time on answering these questions. And I'm going to start off with Alison. Why don't you get us started?
Hello, everyone, and thank you to the Young Invincibles for highlighting our two stories. I think the video is an adequate portrayal of how many people are masquerading as so-called normal students when this has been a common experience for so many people. And I want to thank everyone for tuning in and hearing about this issue. I have a unique experience in that I'm a returned student to Hunter College. I returned in the spring of 2020. So I got to enjoy a relatively normal campus life for the first month, and then everything shut down. And in a way, it triggered me back to my early years at Hunter. So in 2010, I moved to New York as an out-of-state student. I chose Hunter because it has so much opportunity, with the promise that you're going to walk away with a degree that doesn't leave you in debt, that provides the same opportunities as even Ivy League colleges. And to this day, I really believe in the Hunter dream, as well as the Cuny dream. Alas, I wasn't able to get dormitory housing. I tried to contact so many people trying to find stable housing, and instead I resorted to going to Craigslist, and I became an unpaid nanny. Essentially, that was not the, safest choice, and it wound up being a very risky decision. Long story short, I found myself in not only labor exploitation, but also sexual exploitation. And I still persisted towards my degree without many opportunities presented to me for another choice. Ultimately, that situation didn't work out. I was in what could be considered homelessness, but to myself, I saw it as a choice I placed on myself. By moving to New York City, by trying to complete my degree, I had family back at home who said, "We hope you fall on your nose so you come home." And so there was like a certain, pride and grit about me that made me persist. After roughly 2 years, though, I was denied for a student loan. I didn't know that everything was falling through, so I found myself a dropout with a 3.65 GPA. I had the Dean's List honors and everything, and yet I couldn't find my path back into college. I think what really affected me was that nobody really noticed. I just fell through the cracks. And so now that I come back 10 years later, it's incredible to see that there are programs that are making this their agenda, that are trying to not only advocate for bringing student services, but also generate self-advocacy amongst students. So thank you again. And I'm so keen on hearing what Jalisa has to say.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Allison. In terms of my experiences with food and housing insecurity, in terms of food insecurity, as an intern at the food pantry, I've seen firsthand how much of a necessity it is for students on campus. A lot of the meal plans that are offered are very expensive, which means that a lot of people have to choose the lowest options, and at times they run out of money. And in terms of my friends, many of them have had to skip meals because they can't really afford to eat. Thus, this can affect you mentally, because if you're always worrying about where your next meal may come from, you can't really focus on your grades. And with that, in terms of housing insecurity, I had to move off campus my third year of school because living on campus is very expensive. And as a first generation student, I couldn't afford to just keep on adding more loans. Therefore, there's always that step of making sure that I have enough money to pay rent, while also focusing on school. And without the proper resources, it's very hard to form healthy relationships or maintain your grades if you have these other stressors that are also on your plate. That is why resources that are advocated by students and are available and attainable is something that's very important to ensure that everyone has the ability to actually get a proper education without having to worry about these extra stressors.
Thank you guys so much for your responses. I can't imagine, Alyssa, having to, Allison, having to, first of all, just falling through the cracks like that without anyone from the faculty reaching out to you and letting you know about, the risks that you may face. And being forced out of school is not the best option. It's not the best, practical reality for anyone. And Jalisa, I think being firsthand and seeing how working at a food pantry, actually, I never even knew about the effect of there's different food plans available. I assume that food pantry meals were free. So that's, I mean, great information to know today. Another question that I do have for you guys is, we discussed earlier about how resource hubs and requiring Cuny and Suny campuses to collect data on campus resources are crucial for helping disadvantaged students. So I want to ask, do you think having a resource hub and requiring data collection will be beneficial for students? And Jalisa, I would like for you to take lead on this question.
Of course, and just to clarify, in terms of the meal plans, it's just offered through the university. The food pantry is free, but at times students have to choose different meal plans when they live on campus, and they may run out of money, which is why having a resource hub, especially within a food pantry, will be very beneficial, because this is a service that many people go to already. And if you have individuals there, like social workers, that could help you find extra help, that'll be very beneficial. And if you have data collection, you're able to hold people accountable to see if the resources available are actually helping, and to see if certain populations are falling through the cracks and not actually having access to the help that is available. Because I know that certain minorities students actually are more likely to have an experience of food and housing insecurity, which is why by having this kind of data, one can properly advocate for these kinds of students.
I love this question because in the end, all my experiences as a student, as a New Yorker, point to the fact that isolation is the greatest dream killer. So if we have a resource hub, it's a center and a place for everyone to come together, realize that they're not alone, you know, that even quote unquote normal people need help, need to gather together, need to pull together resources to help one another achieve the best. The other aspect of it, I'm sorry, I'm consulting my notes, of course, is the ability to advocate for yourself requires other people believing in you, which I think is the greatest gift that we give to each other as Suny and Cuny students. Even if we might not interact directly with one another, being in classrooms together, being on campus together, applying for these colleges to begin with, means that we believe in each other, that we're the best students that are out there, that we're the greatest crew to be hanging with. So I think promoting so-called resource hubs is not just about providing people services, but also creating that community connection, which especially right now after COVID-19 and the lockdown during the pandemic, is something that we've lost touch with. A lot of us have forgotten what it's like to have a community of students. So this is the perfect time to launch these sorts of hubs. I think it again reinforces that you're not going to be alone, that needy students are actually the majority of students here at municipal colleges. And when it comes to personal data collection, I think it's a great way to de-invisibilize people, whether they are people of color, whether they are people of different income or class gaps, or maybe a litany of other issues that we're not really aware of that contribute to homelessness, food insecurity, and struggling with mental health. So I think that data, especially if there's some ability to allow people to write in the reasons, opens our eyes to even more critical issues that cause these problems for students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alison. That was really great. You really hit the nail on the head in terms of talking about how resource hubs really just help students build a community, and with communities, how we'll go really far in this life. And another one of my questions is, how do you see the issues of housing / food insecurity and mental health access tied to the fight for equity? Alison, you touched on a lot of how the resource hub will really create a community and which really helps students. So Jalisa, I want to ask you, how do you see that with the resource hub, how can it really aid with issues with mental health and housing and food insecurity?
I think Alison touched a lot of great points. And in terms of making sure that there is equal and fair access to all resources, by having a resource hub, you will have a bigger opportunity to actually engage with individuals that may help you find solutions to food insecurity, housing, and mental health access. sometimes, and like in the video that was stated, there may be resources for you, but you just don't know how to really like go about it, or if they even exist. So by having a resource hub, you'll have one place to go to actually have access to these resources and even aid in terms of your mental health and food insecurity and housing access, because you won't have to just figure it out by yourself. Like Alison said, you have people that will support you and obviously will want to see you thrive. That is why by having a bigger access to these resources, that's the only way that will be possible, because figuring it out on your own is not really beneficial. And that is why a lot of students have to drop out and deal with these issues on their own without the proper help that every student should have, regardless of socioeconomic status and many other factors that go into these stressors.
Okay, cool. And our final question for the night is, what would a truly supportive campus look like to you? And Alison and Jalisa, I would love you both to input on this question.
To be honest, a truly supportive campus will have a place for all students to go to learn about the proper resources for the many things that they may be going through. And at the same time, this kind of support will not just be for certain students. It's something that's going to be attainable and properly advertised. I feel like a lot of the issue pertains to the fact that many of the students may not know that these resources exist. And by probably having like something as a resource hub, that's one of the ways in which this will be possible. And so that students can feel like getting an education is something that's attainable to them, and worrying about whether the next meal may come from or where they'll be staying at is something that they don't have to figure out by themselves.
I think Jalisa highlights the most critical point, which is that you need a place where people can come to with these questions that you don't know where to answer. And because these are three most fundamental issues, food, housing, and mental health, it shouldn't be a labyrinth to figure out where you can get these services, especially on campuses where people are being trained not only to be great professionals, but successful adults. In a city like New York, in a state like New York, it's so critical that we amass the great resources that we have in our governments on our school campuses and make them accessible to all. I saw in the Q&A that someone is curious, how do campuses advertise these services? And I think much like our experience enrolling into colleges, going to bursar's office, figuring out our financial aid, everything seems like it's an endless queue. And if you don't come with the right questions, if you don't come with the right mindset, you're not going to walk away with the services you need. So a supportive campus would understand not only what services need to be provided, but the psychological hurdles that people have after experiencing, for some people, a lifetime of being turned away. So I think a supportive campus would have all of these services delivered in a way that is logical for their population, especially when we're considering high schoolers who are now coming onto college campuses. How do we create services and a service delivery environment that they can understand? So in a way, it's like a reverse engineering, having to understand what people are like, how they're going to respond, what kind of questions they're going to have, and then create that resource hub that's heavily advertised, both physically, online, in email, brought up during classes, so nobody feels like they fall in between the cracks, and nobody hears about something, 3 years after they enrolled and realized that they could have gotten the support they needed, and perhaps they would have emerged with a better GPA or a major they really appreciated, because school for them is instead like a tunnel. They're so busy focusing on their basic needs that they can't focus on actualizing their dreams. So that's just, my brief idea of what a supportive campus campus could be like, but I think it's different for so many students, and understanding both the psychology and the reality of delivering those services is critical to constructing those supportive campus environments.
Thank you, Alison. I 100% agree with what you have to say. And I'm going to just insert my own little story here. Like, I think when you go to college, you know, it's kind of like, this is your moment to, you know, become a young adult. And, you know, I think we need to like kind of change that type of environment and understand that college is a place where we are cultivating new leaders and new workers and new laborers in the future. And we need to like, you know, offer some support. I don't think that's something too hard to ask from colleges, and a resource hub would just offer that, exactly that, especially for new students on campus and for students wherever they are in their academic career, to find somewhere where they can actually get advice and just be offered support whenever they need it. And especially during the time of COVID, it was really difficult for a lot of students, a lot of teachers as well, to be able to, you know, kind of figure out what's going to go on for them, like post, you know, or during this whole COVID-19 situation. And a resource hub, I believe, if it was like more situated on campuses, would have moved online in a better way to service students and like offer mental health, you know, support, because being in a pandemic and being isolated for a long time from people, it was hard to kind of, you know, just get out of that mindset. And I definitely think a truly supportive campus would be a place where students are, you know, throughout the freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year, are kind of like pushed and asked, how are you doing? Where are you in this process? Because everyone has a lot going on. We get too caught up, but it'll be very nice for college just to, you know, a college campus counselor to just check in like, hey, how are you? Or where are you? And what do you need? Because we need that support. I don't think we all need that support, no matter where you are in your life. I think we need to kind of understand that community is where how we'll go so far in whatever that we do. And thank you guys so much again, Alison and Jalisa, for coming out and speaking with us. And I'm gonna pass this on to Lea.
Yes, thank you so much to our panelists and you, Magmi. That was incredible, and we really appreciate all the information that you guys gave out and like all the insight and, you know, just being vulnerable and sharing your story. We really do appreciate that. So for our next little section, we're going to be talking about how we can actually get involved in our little call to action. So right now we're actually having a little Twitter storm. Supposed to start at 7, but we can start it now, and it'll be running up until 8 p.m. And we will be taking part of this Twitter storm, and we'll be demanding that our elected officials and like leadership at Cuny and Suny meet our basic needs. So right now I'm going to share my screen or our advocacy toolkit, which if we could drop the link in the chat, that would be awesome. So these 3 tweets right here, they are going to be our sample tweets. The first one is going to be calling on the governor and our state legislation to work together in order to turn our food pantries into resource hub. And this will, like, obviously we've been talking like all about like resource hubs throughout this event. This will be really beneficial for students. And it will allow students to have one place where they can access all their basic needs. And our second tweet is going to be focusing a little bit more on like mental health. And it's going to be asking that the Speaker of the State Assembly to work with the legislature to support the bill 8302. And this bill will require 1 clinical mental health staff member per 1,000 students on all Cuny and Suny campuses. And lastly, our third tweet is going to be asking that Cuny and Suny assess the effectiveness of their data collection methods. And obviously we need the statistics in order to be helpful for our programs and to keep them open. So the links for our automated tweets should be in the chat. If you click on them, they should be pretty accessible. You can click on them, sign into your Twitter account. And if you don't have Twitter, that's completely fine. Just go ahead and share with your friends. And we can go ahead and take some time, maybe like a quick minute just to like go and share these tweets. And yeah, I'll just give you guys some time to do that. Okay, awesome. If you guys haven't gotten the chance to tweet yet, that's completely okay. Like I said before, this is going to be running until 8 p.m. And if you don't get a chance to, or if your friends don't get a chance to, by the end of the night, that is completely okay. These tweets can be tweeted out any other time of the day. And I did see in the shot that we wanted to open our Q&A again. Did we want to do that, or are we good to start closing out our event?
I see that we have a question. Lea, if you wanted to read that out.
It says, how can campuses better advertise their resources for students? And we're gonna have our panelists, or can we like all jump in?
I think we all can jump in. I would love to hear how we all individually think we can advertise resources on campus. So who would like to jump in first?
I can speak on it a little bit. Personally, like I said before, I go to John Jay, and I must say that like I consider myself to be like a more like active student, and I always like to know what's going on. And to be honest, like I didn't know that we even had like mental health services for so long. And I think that definitely has to do with the fact that it's literally not advertised. If you don't pass through the wellness center in my school, you literally don't know that it's even there. So I definitely think that if schools were to have like maybe like newsletters like every week, you know, just sharing like all the resources that they have. I know that, you know, Cuny has like all these like resources, like technologies, like they can send out text. There's also social media. And I think that social media presence from like wellness centers and our counselors in our schools could be very visible. And I think that would definitely like advertise and help students find those resources. And if anyone else wants to jump in.
Hello, I'm eager to hear what everyone else has to say, but one thing that just jumped to my mind is that with each new generation or year of CUNY students, we of course have new technologies that we bring with us. 2021, I guess that's how it is. But I'm sure so many CUNY students use TikTok, use Instagram, use Twitter, and just being able to disperse this information in every means possible is so critical, and sort of creating allies or leadership positions for students to take the lead on that would be extraordinarily helpful, not just for their personal and professional resumes, but also for individuals who might not be walking on campus, but they do follow a Twitter account or a Facebook group. So part of it is adapting to our sort of ADHD culture, sometimes putting something up on like a board in a hallway might not get everybody, but going on TikTok or going on Twitter and making it a viral experience might be a way to broaden the message.
As well, I feel like student empowerment is very important. And at times, students taking charge can make a change because they may see firsthand what's happening. For example, here at Binghamton, I am currently the co-president for Swipe Out Hunger, which is a club that advocates to decrease hunger on campus. And we basically share the many resources that are available to people that may be dealing with hunger on campus, while also trying to seek change through policy. And I feel like with these kind of initiatives and the proper support from faculty and staff can really make a change to make sure that all students are helped and accounted for, so they don't fall between the cracks of figuring it out on themselves by themselves as well.
I just wanted to quickly jump in. Thank you guys again for every great thing you said. There's just been so many great things said today. I agree a lot with what Alison said about the like social media and stuff like that. Like I know at my campus, a lot of student organizations are on Instagram, and you know that could easily be another way for students to get involved and make coalitions to stop food insecurity and housing insecurity on their campuses. And Another thing that I think is really important is just there's still a lot of stigma around these issues. Like, I think, for me personally, like, I know that I've like experienced some of these things firsthand, and, it's still even today very hard to speak about. And I think that, if you're going to college, the first thing that doesn't come to a lot of people's minds is, whether or not you're even having like our basic needs met, such as, affording food and affording a place to live. And I think that the first thing is to just put it out there. Like, these things happen to college students, and it happens to a lot of them. And I think that the first step is to either get these students who are experiencing these things together, or to basically just, put it out there that this is happening. Acknowledging it is definitely a great first step, and making a safe space for students to feel comfortable sharing that. So I think that's very important to this process as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much to our amazing panelists for your time and willingness to share your experiences. And thank you to everyone who attended tonight's event. On the bottom of the screen, we have the usernames to all of YI social media. So please give us a follow. We hope that we have started the conversation on this important topic. In the chat, you'll find the link tree, which includes all of the information we mentioned during the presentation, such as resources for our statistics and information on Senate Bill S.844. You'll also find our advocacy toolkit, which you can use to continue advocating for the hashtag Cuny Suny Uplift Us campaign and the Young Invincibles digital action, so you can stay involved with the work that Young Invincibles does. Attending our Cuny Suny Uplift Us campaign is the first step in creating an equitable future in higher education. This week on Wednesday, December 8th, from same time, 6 to 7 p.m., there's another Young Invincibles event called Cuny No Hoops, Equitable Pathways When Transferring Colleges. We see time and time again that students of color and low-income students are disproportionately affected when transferring between colleges, especially within the Cuny and Suny system. Join our young advocates as they propose recommendations for New York colleges to address these persistent barriers students face and hear from these students directly on the issue. Thank you again, guys, for coming out. My name is Magdi Sila, and that is it for this evening.